I think you can fall in love, and it's partly being open-minded to different ways of falling in love and different possibilities.
So what is love?
Love is the phenomenon of becoming highly attached and treasuring somebody else. Some people have the terrible problem of feeling like they don't feel that way toward anybody, and those people are in a little bit in trouble because they don't feel attached and treasuring of anybody.
Are there telltale signs like that happen when somebody is in love?
Well, we do have certain MRI patterns that we associate with love. And that is when certain parts of the brain that we associate with reward light up. But let's face it, you know, there's a tiny little percentage of humanity that actually looks at MRIs. So for most people, we use guesswork to see whether we think somebody is in love. And you can see the way parents treat their children and the way husbands treat their wives and the way wives treat their husbands, that they are showing aspects of love when they show kindness and treasuring and smiling. And very often, as a clinical psychiatrist, sometimes I can see somebody come to my office, and as they fall in love, they sort of smile and their face lights up more and more.
How does it go from just really liking somebody or feeling a feeling of attachment to love?
You could be infatuated with somebody and feel very attracted to them, but your brain, the rational part of your brain, might be saying, this is going to be trouble. Don't ever think about a lifetime with that person. So when you not only feel very attracted to somebody, but you also think, now there's somebody that I could really love and respect over a long period of time. That's how it transitions over to love.
So it has to be more than just physical attraction.
It does.
How do we know, right? Like I think, okay, so I've been happily married for 10 years and I just knew. I don't remember anything that I necessarily like thought of or a switch that flipped. Like I just felt like I was in love with this woman. How do we get to that? Like, how does that happen?
I think when you get to know somebody better and better, and they get to know you and seem to reciprocate your feelings, that it just becomes irrefutable. You just don't have any questions about it. Here, you felt attracted and thought that person was a great bet, and they feel the same way about you. And between the physical attraction and the mutual respect, it becomes irrefutable.
When we fall in love, like what happens to our bodies? What happens to our brains?
Well, in our brains, there are all sorts of neurohormones that are getting transmitted. So, for example, there's dopamine, that is sometimes called the joy hormone, and that gets poured out. There are the sex hormones that get increased. There is often at the very beginning, when you're sort of wondering if your feelings are going to be reciprocated, there's a lot of corticosterol, which is a stress hormone that gets secreted, where you sort of wonder, is this going to work out? And you get a little obsessed with that. As the love becomes more stable and reliable, you start having what we might call the hormones of well-being, like serotonin and oxytocin, which get secreted and make you feel more stable and comfortable than you felt before.
I don't know if this question is going to make any sense, but for some reason, this kind of sticks in my brain is the idea is like, but who's driving the car? Are we in love because those chemicals are being released, or do the chemicals get released because we are in love?
I think that implies a level of understanding that we don't have. We just don't know. You know, our brain has both electrical impulses and chemicals that are being released, but we can't say our brains sort of run the show. And they use electrical impulses and chemicals to run the show. But uh, whether the brain is running the show or the little finger is running the show, we would usually say the brain.
Yeah, that's always kind of fascinated me in the sense of like, how does the brain not know how it's working? Like,
The human beings are such complicated creatures, and the brain is the kind of master switch of the whole thing. that even with lots of people studying it for years and years, we don't fully understand it.
Can people really get love sick?
Yes, if you have a kind of obsessive personality, and you might say, well, what is an obsessive personality? But if you have a personality that doesn't stop thinking about things easily, you can't kind of seamlessly move on to another topic, but you get stuck on topics. Then, if you loved somebody and it didn't work out, you can sort of stay in love and be analyzing it for the next 10 years.
Can people like how can people get over that?
That is a $64,000 question. People have a lot of trouble with that, and they really need to get into therapy and sort of try. In a way, we underestimate the power of decisions. If you want to get over something, you really have to want to get over it. It's a little like the light bulb joke. But you might say, well, does that mean you never think about the thing you don't want to think about? And that's wrong. The minute you say, don't think about an elephant, everybody thinks about an elephant. So if you say, don't think about that relationship that didn't work out, everybody goes back to thinking all the time about the relationship. But if you start to understand that with obsessions, you have to let the thoughts kind of waft by and watch them and then move on. And you have to kind of treat an obsession like you're riding a bucking bronco and it's your job to tame it. So then you can get over it, but you have to actually work on it. It's not easy. It's like a bad habit, like smoking. It can be an addictive habit, and you really have to pour huge amounts of energy into breaking an addictive habit.
Have you ever had somebody that just couldn't feel it? They could not experience love.
Yeah, I have had patients like that, and it was terrible for them.
Why would that be? Like how did that develop?
I'm thinking of one person. He was incredibly competent of many things. He was very adored by his family. He was perfectly wonderful when he was going out, and he knew he would be better than everybody he saw in one way or another. But when he didn't feel that he would be better than other people, he crumpled. He sort of collapsed. And when you're in love with somebody, you have to be willing to ride the roller coaster of love, where sometimes you're doing well, sometimes you're not doing so well, sometimes there are triumphs, sometimes there are losses. You have to be willing to be on that roller coaster, and he just wasn't. It was too terrifying.
What is your favorite fact about love? Or the thing that you think is the most interesting about it?
That it makes you feel that all the problems in life are adventures rather than terrors. That basically, when you're thinking about the next step of something and it's very hard and complicated and you can't quite figure out how you would do it, when you have a partner, it's sort of fun to think about how you're going to do it. When you're by yourself, it just looks terrifying.